Good afternoon. Thank you for taking a few minutes to be with me today on Zach Talk 01. 20 years ago, I got married and my beautiful bride asked me, when are we going to have kids? And I told her, how about 5 years from now? And we agreed. 5 years came. How about 6? Okay, we'll wait till 6. 7? I'm just not ready to have kids. I really thought I would be. I'd been married for 5 years, but I just wasn't ready to have kids. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you or somebody you know can benefit from hearing this message, please like and subscribe below. Also, there's a share button down there. If you click the share button, you can forward this message on to someone you know who maybe is struggling with the idea of becoming a new parent, a new father, a mother. Maybe they're pregnant with their first and they're nervous. Maybe they have been married like I was for years and years and were not quite ready to do it. And they weren't even sure why. I know why I wasn't ready to do it. 5 years into our marriage, and my wife and I were deep into a network marketing business. And we were successful at it, I got to tell you. Our company paid us to travel around the country and teach and train other people to do the sales techniques that we learned, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to give you a network marketing pitch. That ended back in 2013 for me. If you'd like to hear some of the things that we learned and some of the lessons that we learned, let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you about those on a later episode. The point was, we were well into our career, we were successful, and all I could see was that if I were to have children in the picture, how could my wife and I continue with what we were doing? We were successful already. We didn't want to put that aside. We didn't want to ruin what we had going for ourselves. But I'd made a promise to my wife. 5 years in, she was gracious enough to give me another year. 6 years in, it was time. But it wasn't quite that simple for us. The reason was my wife has some medical conditions and she had to be on some pretty heavy medications. And she couldn't get pregnant. We couldn't safely, I should say, get pregnant on those medications. So here was our plan. I became a carny and we moved down to Arizona. I bought a bungee trampoline. We left the beautiful mountains of south central Montana and went to the desert, and I set up a bungee trampoline in malls down there. I'll tell a little bit more of my life story later, but suffice to say, it was a great little career. I was working 2.5 days a week, earning a 6-figure income, and all cash. It was kind of a beautiful thing. My wife, we hoped, would do better in her health conditions in a more stable climate. And that's what Arizona offered us over the constantly changing weather patterns in Montana. So why wasn't I ready to have kids earlier? For me, I just loved my life. My wife and I are both last-born children. We're pretty spontaneous. We wake up and for the most part, we love every day. I mean, we love the way things are. We loved eating out at restaurants. We love going and hanging out with friends. We love just, hey, let's go for a trip, jump on an airplane and go somewhere for the weekend. These are wonderful things, and there's nothing wrong with them. Having kids, that's going to put a damper on that, isn't it? At any rate, that was my thought. Here's what I learned. Having children does not cramp your lifestyle in the way that you think. Having children rather defines your purpose in a way you can't even imagine. So let me talk a little bit more about this. We did get pregnant. We'd been married for 8.5 years, I believe, when we had kids. And I wouldn't trade those 8.5 years. I'm not disappointed that we did things that way. In fact, I love where we're at in life right now. We have 11, almost 12-year-old twins and an 8-year-old. And we love our family life. And we love this time in our 40s to be able to have children at this age. It worked out well for us. But I want to tell you, my concerns, I thought over and over again, I told people this, that I enjoy watching, say, my brother's kids, my nieces and nephews. I enjoy watching other people's kids for about 2 hours. But then I'm ready to give them back to their parents. I'm exhausted. I don't really want to have children around me 24 hours a day for the next 18 years. You know, how daunting of a thought is that? So I get it. I get it. That was my thought. That's how I was looking at it. And I didn't want to be unfair to children, because maybe there are people out there who are just so good at being with kids, and they're so patient, and they're just a different caliber of human being than I am. And maybe it's more fair to leave the child rearing up to people like that. I'm going to get tired of these kids 2 hours into our first day, and then I'm stuck with them for another 18 years. This is how I was thinking about it. And I know this is how people think about it, right? Okay, so we had kids. Actually, our twins were born 2 months early, and I'm going to share that whole story. It's actually a pretty incredible story of God's miracles. But our twins were born 2 months early, and at St. Vincent's Hospital in Billings, Montana. They were in the NICU. And I got to tell you, you've heard that, maybe you've heard the story over and over again, that a little child will grab your finger and all of a sudden your dad instincts kick in and your life changes. Well, for me, that happened not so much when they grabbed my finger, because our babies were actually so tiny and so vulnerable. We're talking, one of them was 3 pounds and some odd ounces. The other was 2 pounds and some odd ounces. So we actually didn't even have the opportunity to touch them very much. Their skin was too fragile, and they had to grow in the NICU. Essentially in the incubators, I guess you call them, in the NICU. But over the course of those first 3 days, I got to tell you, my life changed dramatically. And I don't even know why. There was nobody who enjoyed their freedom as a single, not a single, we were married, but as parents without children. There was nobody who enjoyed their freedom as much as I feel like we did. And my big concern was, we're going to give away some of that. We're going to give away some of that freedom. And I got to tell you, I think it set me free to become a dad. I think it set me free in a way that I probably could not have imagined. I remember one of my really good friends, Eric is his name, and he came down and picked me up from the NICU. This was a week or so after our twins were born, and we went out for a beer. And at the time, I was a state trooper. I mean, I was kind of all that, you know. I drove fast cars and went after criminals and carried guns, and I was a pretty cool dude, I thought of myself. And I remember telling my friend Eric, over a beer just a couple blocks away from the hospital, everything's changed for me. I told him I could see my whole future right now. I can see it. I'm going to be driving minivans. I'm going to be wearing ball caps for my kids' baseball teams. I'm going to be changing diapers. I'm not going to have time for showers. I'm going to be tired all the time. I'm going to be taking my kids along with me everywhere I go. And I said, I'm not going to be cool anymore, probably for the rest of my life. But I don't care. It was a shift that happened in me. I don't care. All of a sudden, that stuff is so small. I mean, it's small in the way, do you remember when you were a kid? Maybe I'm talking more to you guys out there. Do you remember really being into Legos? Or maybe you're still into Legos, and that's a bad example. You remember really being into coloring with crayons, right? Or drawing, or maybe you were really into, I don't know, playing with Play-Doh, these types of things. You couldn't imagine losing it. If you had a stuffed animal, I mean, that was your stuffed animal. If you were Linus with a blanket and you couldn't sleep without it, to you, so big a portion of your life would be gone if you were to lose that toy or that stuffed animal. And now when you look back at it, how do you think about it? Not so much that that was kind of silly. No, you've changed though. It's not important to you in the way that it was. You have different priorities now. You have different joys. You've grown into a different sort of a human being. And you say, yeah, but Zach, that took me 20 years. You know, I was 10 years old when I was into stuffed animals, and now I'm 30. Well, yeah, I get that, but your life purpose is going to change in a few hours as dramatically as those 30 years, if you could compress them from turning 10 to turning 30, just like that. If you could compress that into a few hours, that's how radically your life goals, your convictions, your purpose in this world will change when you become a father. So I want to say this, having kids does not wreck your life plan. It reveals your life purpose. It is by far my favorite part about life right now, and for the last 11 years, is being a father. I mean, to say there's no close second doesn't even, it's not a powerful enough statement. It's like there's no close 20th. My kids, being a father to them is the most important thing in my world by such a long shot that there's no comparison. God put this instinct in us as men, and he knew what he was doing. So trust that when you have kids, you're going to find a whole new purpose that you didn't think was possible. And I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to trust that. Thanks for taking a minute to be with me today. If you saw anything of benefit in this episode, please like and subscribe below. There's a like button, which is a thumbs up. There's a subscribe button. Share this video with somebody that you know that's struggling about whether they're ready to be, especially for the men, and whether they're ready to be a father. Have a great day.